One of the biggest fallacies we hold is this belief that rationality is the controller of emotions. There's no such thing as real objectivity. Hello, my friends. Today I want to talk about how to stop your emotions from controlling you. We go about the world and we see how much of a mess it is, but we don't realize that the world is only really a mess because it is us. We are a mess, and the world merely reflects our projection of it. Western thought basically creates a fast distinction between the heart and the mind in us as a person, right? We call these the left and the right hemispheres, the system 1 and system 2 way of thinking, the hot and cold systems, right? And in ancient Chinese philosophy, the two aspects of the heart and the mind are one and the same underneath. And so we typically, when we think of the mind, we think of it as rational, planning, disciplinary, and effortful. It's slow, it's conscious deliberation, it costs willpower to use. It's cold, it's logical, and it's calculating. Whereas the mind is emotional, it's unconscious, quote unquote, right? Versus the mind, which is quote unquote conscious. It's fast and it's without effort. It's instinctual. It's warm. It's intuitive. It feels. It's feeling, and it's open. Whereas the mind tends to be closed. So that's another different quality. The mind tends to close down and center in on how it thinks about the world, whereas the heart tends to open to the entire feelingness of the world, right? And so we think about this heart and mind distinction, and two people, right? Two people can have two completely opposite opinions, and they can argue them to the moon and back based completely on facts and logic. Now, why is this, right? Because both sides can have facts and logic to back up their argument. So which side is right, right? And that's really one of the biggest fallacies we hold, is this belief that rationality is the controller of emotions. Like, we think there's this one objective, rational viewpoint of the world that's correct, and all the other ones are irrational, incorrect. But that's only correct from our subjective point of view. Like, objectivity is not, there's no such thing as real objectivity, because you can only produce a state of objectivity through your subjective opinion that it's objective, right? Who is to say something is objective, right? I could say this is objective and you would disagree, and it's like, who is right? The reality is that we can justify any view with logic and with facts, so long as we are emotionally attached to it. As long as we're attached to that view, we can back it up. And you see this with politics, right? It's like, who is right? You just argue back and forth. It's a clown fest. That's the thing. The reality is that your feelings guide the quote-unquote direction of the logical stance that you take. It's through your intuitive feeling of what feels objectively true and logical and factual that guides you into arguing for that, right? Because you're emotionally attached to it. And so we have to realize that emotions are the driver of logic, not the other way around. So in a certain sense, the heart is more powerful than the mind, and not the other way around. Because when you use willpower gets exhausted, whereas kind of emotions and just this unconscious flow of energy that happens within you that brings about your emotions, it doesn't run out of willpower. And so this is why it's not productive to try to change your emotions through logic, through willpower and discipline, because ultimately it's completely it's irrational. It's all of these things, the logic, the discipline, the willpower, is created from your subjective feeling body. And so the ancient Chinese sages knew this, knew that it was counterproductive to go against the feeling intuition of the heart. Because going against a part of yourself, because if you're the mind, if you're the disciplinarian, going against the heart, say the lazy, you feel tired, you feel right. We always try to be that disciplinary agent against ourselves, right? It creates, going against ourselves creates this kind of permanent split. It splits our existence into a schizophrenic two. And so the angel, right? The angel and the devil, these are just constructs created by the actions of our restless mind, always looking to, to trying to be rational, trying to justify its stance, right? And so the more you create an enemy within yourself, right? The enemy that is, perverted, the enemy that needs to be disciplined, the enemy that is lazy, the enemy that is unproductive, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Right? The more you create that sense of inner enemy, the more you will do the same thing in the treatment of another person. So what you do in your internal world, in this physical sense of combativeness, you'll also reflect on your outer world. And so instead, we have to listen to our emotions. Let them guide your logical actions, but don't condemn any mistake or disagreement, whether these are internal or external. To do this is to develop a very deep respect for how you truly feel, because the more you neglect the heart, right, the feeling heart, in all of its feeling and emotion, the more it bottles up, and it'll come out in ways that you do not want it to. Let's just say that, right? It manifests itself as hatred, as jealousy, as envy, as anger, as lust, as greed, right? All because we rejected a part of ourselves and we let it like bathe and just simmer in our deeply inside of ourselves, but it's going to manifest itself no matter what. The harder you try to push it down with the mind, the harder it's going to blow back out. It's like a pressure cooker, right? You just keep pressurizing until one day it just blows, right? And so it's this integration of the shadow part of yourself which brings tremendous peace. It's that harmonious integration of the heart mind, which leads to what the ancient Chinese called the perfected person, right? It's someone who can go about worldly affairs in effortless action and in unperturbed ease, right? One who is free and unbounded, one who has realized this innermost essence of xin in Chinese, the heart mind, right? They refer to it as xin, not as two separate entities, but as one thing. So in Chinese, psychology is called 心理学. It's studying the heart mind. And yet when we refer to the heart, we also say 心, heart, right? So it's very interesting how psychology, literal translation can be considered study of the heart, or the study of the heart mind. And so it's used interchangeably between mind and heart, and it's this kind of integration that we need to come back to in order to be able to control our emotions. We must first accept them, right? Otherwise we will never feel satisfied. There's always trying to justify something, we're always trying to rationalize something, right? We just refuse to feel certain ways when it's completely natural part of the human experience, right? And is this rejection of our totality of feelingness, right? It's the rejection of openness itself, right? We're closing down, using our minds, we're closing down from the openness of feeling everything, right? That's the beauty of life. If we close down from that, then all it is darkness and pain and hiding, right? Trying to hide from the world, trying to hide from life. And that's not the kind of life that you want to live, right? That's a naive way to think about life, is to kind of try to push sadness aside and only seek happiness. That's the surest way you're going to find a hell of a lot of sadness. So I hope you enjoyed this video, enjoyed making this one. If you like this video, give the video a like, hit a subscribe. I would love to have you on board. And until next time, we'll see you in the next one.